This is Isabel Allende's Along Petal of the Sea, and it was recommended to me by somebody in my reading group. I happened to mention that I'd not been enjoying fiction so much this year. Novels didn't seem to quite work for me. They weren't giving me what I normally looked for and got from fiction. And she recommended this book. I'd come across Isabel Allende over the years and always thought I would read one of her books, but something stopped me getting there. I don't know what it was about what I'd read. Anyway, on recommendation, which I trusted, I got hold of this book and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's how to describe it? It's a book that it covers a large canvas. The action in this takes place over, well, from the 1930s up until 1990. So it's over the best part of 60 years, over 50 years. And it also is situated on quite a wide canvas geographically. So the opening section's in Spain, and then the rest of the book is in South America, Chile and Venezuela a bit. It's a love story. It's promoted as a love story, and it is. It feels real and honest, and the two protagonists struggle with emotions and senses of their self and how they relate to others that feel kind of real and honest to me. The book starts in the Spanish Civil War, and although I know a little about that conflict from reading Hemingway's fiction and reading biographies of George Orwell and just general commentary, this book added to my knowledge because it did get inside the kind of political allegiances of various Spanish people and how that conflict grew and how it looked, if you like, for ordinary people and extraordinary people living in Spain at the time. So the politics and the big kind of international picture is represented in this book, but all the way through it isn't heavily hammered home. This is a book about individuals, particularly the two individuals, Victor and Rosa. So it's very educative because it doesn't try too hard to educate, if you know what I mean. So the privations of the Spanish Civil War and the tensions and the fear are well presented. These two characters and others escape Spain over the Pyrenees into France, but they don't do too well in France, and they're put in a concentration camp. They're rescued from that, along with a lot of other Spanish refugees, by the Chilean government of the time. We're talking about 1939 now, and this is a true historical fact. The Chilean government sent a ship, the Winnipeg, under the direction of the poet Pablo Neruda. Imagine poets being in charge of big operations around, times of international conflict. Poets, the true legislators. And Neruda is told to go and pick up, I think it's a few thousand of refugees who will fit onto this ship and bring back people who will enhance Chile's economy and its cultural life, but not to bring back troublemakers and agitators and all the rest of it. But Neruda does choose artists and writers and poets as well as people from all other sorts of walks of life. So not quite what the Chilean government had in mind, but he brings back people who, if you like, are, without being crude about political spectrums, but they're kind of on the left and they're liberal and progressive, as well as people who are in other positions on that. So I won't say too much about the relationship between these two people because it will be a spoiler, but it's interesting. They, perhaps I can just say that they have to pretend to be a married couple in order to get on the ship. That's one of the criteria that were being used. And actually, Rosa is carrying the child of somebody else. In fact, Victor's brother, who has been killed in the conflict, and I don't think she knows that. But anyway, Victor is looking after her and her unborn baby, and in order to do so, they have to pretend to be married. And this pretense carries on when they come to Chile. So one aspect of this book, which I think is really satisfying, is this deepening relationship between the two characters. There is nothing frothy or silly about it, in a sense. It's kind of forged through hard experience, but it's all the better for that, in a sense, in that it's deep and enduring, and they go on through life together and grow closer and closer together, but over time. So the other big political event which is taking place in this is the 1973 overthrow of Salvador Allende's government. I remember that well from my own youth. And of course, Isabel Allende is related to Salvador Allende. She's his niece, I think, and she's forced into exile when Pinochet takes over. Salvador Allende is killed, apparently by suicide, although questions, I think, do remain about the military junta and its part in that. And it was a brutal, repressive regime which forced lots of kind of liberal-minded and progressive Chileans to become refugees, or they died in the stadiums, the football stadiums, where they were incarcerated. Now, you might expect Allende to be bitter and burning with this injustice, and no doubt she is, but it's not hammered home in this novel. It's there as a kind of background. Salvador Allende actually as a character, he appears a bit, but mainly as a chess player. He's Victor's chess playing mate, and he's portrayed in a more human light, but he's not a big presence in this book. So I think she's done incredibly well to present an historical context to Victor and Rosa's relationship, both in the Spanish Civil War and then in Chile, in peaceful times, in terrible times, and then in a more relaxed environment when they can finally go back. I found it a very satisfying read. There's something about books that cover a big canvas, as this one does, in that some massive events are covered in a paragraph or a few sentences, and then other aspects which in one sense are far less monumental, they're perhaps to do with their relationship or their everyday lives, get pages and pages, and sometimes that can feel a bit unbalanced, but I think that's inevitable with a book that is ambitious in this sense. So I would say thoroughly emotionally satisfying book to read, and to learn some things from as well, about international events and history, and also to learn some things about relationships, perhaps. I shall certainly read some more Isabel Allende, and I'm really, really pleased to have had that recommendation. Thank you.